What is up, and welcome back to the Thriving Stylist Show. I'm your host, Britt Siva, and today we are going to dive into profit of profit. So I'm coming on here assuming that everybody's listening to this week's episode of the Thriving Stylist podcast, but if you have not, please know that this is kind of like an add-on to what we talked about on the podcast this week. So we've been going through a little financial series. If you're a fan of the show, you likely know this. And we talked about the recession and inflation. We talked about what it looks like to be profitable as a stylist. And then this week we talked about what it looks like to be profitable as an owner. And even if you're not a salon owner, you never want to be one. This was a really important episode because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about money in this industry and profit in this industry and who's making the money and who's losing the money and who's fronting like they're making money, but they're not making anything. And I just think that if we can get more transparent in the conversation about money, everybody's going to be happier. There is a real, I was going to use the word pandemic, but you can't say that now. There's a real crisis, I think, in business in general, where you see a lot of people talking these big, sexy numbers about I have $1 million business. And it's yeah, but you have a 1% profit. I don't want any part of that. That sounds like the worst business of all time. And I think that we're in a time, not just in the industry, but in a time where everybody likes to talk about these big flashy numbers, right? I made $700,000, but I'm 30 grand in debt. That's not good. And so what I want to do is really normalize talking about money. I want to normalize talking about small profit margins. I want to normalize talking about the fact that people want to make more money. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in that game. And so I just want to have some transparency around these conversations. So one of the things we talked about on the podcast this week in that vein is the idea, oh my gosh, I am so excited to see your 2X application come through. I'll be looking for it. So one of the things that we talked about on the podcast this week is profit of profit for owners. And what's funny is I got such a great DM over the weekend about profit for profit, and this DM hit before the podcast even came out. And so I want to share with you the message that came through from an amazing thriver. Actually, this is a Thriving Leadership member, about what she was experiencing using profit for profit and the question that she has. So let me make sure I get this coming across on all of our systems and screens here. So this owner was saying, hi Britt, leadership question. I hope you don't mind asking here. I find the profit for profit concept very confusing and complicated. Anybody else feel like when I talk about profit for profit, they're I have no idea what you're talking about? I get it because it's new to the industry, but it's also what is healthy. But for so long, our industry ran unhealthy, toxic. And so we're kind of coming out of this toxicity and really looking at eyes wide open, what does it look like to run a successful business? And we're kind of just now there, right? So it says, it sounds like I'm making way more profit than I actually am. I'd really just rather know the true percentage. So this person doesn't love my profit for profit. And that's okay because she came around once we got into the DM. She was I just don't like it. It's not jiving for me. I'd really rather know what the profit is straight up. Well, the calculator shows with you what the profit is straight up. But the reason why a lot of people are I don't like the calculator, it's not because they don't like the system or the tool. They don't like the result. But the result is the truth. And so we're going to get into that. She says, it sounds like I'm making way more profit than I actually am. I'd really just rather know the true percentage. 2, what qualifies as profit of profit? It needs explaining. It's not clear. I'm going to break all that down today. It's actually super transparent, but it's weird. And that's why people get uncomfortable with it. I really just want to calculate my straight percentage profit based on gross sales. That's fine. Do I have an option to do that? Yes, that's what the calculator is designed to do completely. So let's actually walk through the tool a little bit together. So I'm going to share with you some numbers, but these are not the numbers of this salon owner. So please know that I just put in generic numbers when I was doing this. So I'm not giving up anybody's business secrets or anything like that. It's just some general numbers. Now, after we finish this presentation part, I am going to be taking live questions. So if you feel I don't know what's going on, I have more questions I want to ask. If you're watching live on Instagram, we are streaming on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. But if you're watching on Instagram, hit the question button below and I will get to as many questions as I possibly can. So looking at profit of profit. So the DM I got said, is there any way just to see what the straight profit is? Yes, this calculator gives you straight profit. But what it also does is it breaks it down into a way that makes it doable for both you and your stylist. So let's pretend that we have a stylist who's making $10,000 a month in services. So that service revenue is top line. That's the sexy stuff. That's what everybody likes to brag about. No one likes to brag about the profit margin because it's often not as pretty, right? But that's that top line revenue, okay? This is a fictional stylist. So let's pretend this stylist does 68 color clients a month. The average color of a box of permanent color, $6. The average cost of semi is $6. Now, I know that's really low, but what I always try and do when I share these calculators is not to overinflate, because then I get accused of like swaying numbers. I'm underinflating, if anything. Can we agree? Okay. So let's say that this stylist also does 10 some kind of chemical texture enhancement or services a month. So let's say that's $24 a piece in cost of product, okay? So those are some realities about the stylist. So once we have realities about the stylist, then we can look at maybe the benefits or what's offered by their salon. So when we look at the benefits or what's offered from this salon, let's pretend that they're doing a 3% retirement contribution match. And let's say that they are contributing to healthcare costs. Now, not all salons do, but these are some of the things we look at. How many stations are there in the salon? So that's the next set of numbers we look at. So these are the realities of the business. How much have you committed to giving out? And what are the potential stations you have available? We can call those profit stations. You can call those access points, but like those are all of the opportunities for your business to make money. So then we look and say like, okay, how many opportunities are there for your business to make money? So let's pretend that in this salon, there's 6. Okay, so based on the fact that we have 6 stations, and let me get this up on each. Based on the fact that we have 6 stations and the fact that we do like some pretty basic benefits, let's imagine, we can look at what would be possible for this salon expense-wise. So let's say that the monthly building lease or mortgage payment is $4,800. Let's say that the utilities were $800. Let's say that the cost of amenities was $300. Let's say the monthly cost of cleaning was $400. Let's say laundry was $200. Let's say salon amenities, I already said, were $300. Monthly cost of retail color and back bar stocking, $700. I put salon admin cost at $2,000. That's going to vary for everybody. So when we look at admin cost, for me, it's anything non-income producing. So when I was in the salon, I was the salon director. I made a salary. I was non-income producing, right? I didn't work the front desk. I wasn't taking clients. So essentially, the only income I was making was in doing like marketing and business management, but I wasn't producing any kind of additional revenue myself. Anybody non-income producing, meaning your assistants, the owners draw, anybody, if you have a salon manager, if you have a social media manager, anything like that, they get lumped in here. And then anything else miscellaneous. So a lot of times people have additional expenses and it doesn't necessarily fit into any of these boxes. Maybe you do events in the salon, maybe you host education. What is the cost to do all of those things? So we add it all up and we add it all in. Once we know the costs of the business that we're running, and we know how much a stylist produces, right? In this example, we said that this stylist did $10,000 a month in services. Now, it's going to change for everybody, but that was what we're imagining for this fictitious stylist. So the monthly cost to have this stylist in your space is $5,215. It costs $5,215 to have this stylist breathe in the salon. For them to do all of their services, for them to use your laundry machine, contribute towards the rent of or lease or whatever of the building, $5,215 is the overhead on this person. And this is the number that generally we're not looking at. So this calculator I'm using is called 30% profit of profit. I also have a 25% profit of profit. I have a 20% profit of profit. This is the most aggressive. So this is what would allow the salon owner to take home 30% of profit, and the stylist keeps the lion's share. The stylist keeps 70% of profit, so the vast majority. With this, the stylist doing $10,000 a month would take home $47,000 annual gross a year, so not net, gross, that's pre-tax. They would take $3,958 gross per month, or they could be paid hourly, $25 an hour, $31 an hour, or $41 an hour, or $62 an hour, depending on how many days a week they worked, right? The other thing you could do is offer them commission. This person would be commissionable at 40%. And I know when we see that, our jaws drop and we're like, well, see, I knew it. What was going to happen is the salon owner was going to steal all the money. No, I said it before and I'll say it again. The stylist is taking 70% profit in this scenario, and the salon owner is keeping 30. But we get confused because what we do in this industry is instead of talking like that, we say things like, well, I as a stylist make 60% commissions. Why does my salon keep 60% and I keep 40? They don't. The salon keeps 30 and you're keeping 70. But this is where we got it backwards in our industry, is we see that number right there, the one that says 40% commission, and we get all caught up in that. And we say, see, the salon owner's taking all the money. No, my friend, you as the stylist are taking 70 and the salon owner is taking 30. But we have been conditioned to think that that little number in the right is real. That little number in the right is fake. It's not even a reality of what's going on in the business, because let's say that we are doing this scenario and this is how we decided to compensate. If so, the salon would make a profit of $800 a month on this person, which would end up being about $9,000 a year in profit. Okay, oops, wrong slide on this one. No, that's right. About $9,000 a year in profit. So when we say like, oh, I feel like the salon owner is making all the money, it's not even close. The stylist is still making the lion's share. My sweet secret says, oh, I never understood that. My sweet secret is because no one ever talks about it. All they talk about is that top line number, that I want to make 40%. That number is not real. That is a pie in the sky number. So when people say things like, well, what's the industry average? The industry average is garbage. The industry average actually doesn't matter at all. It matters what is possible based on your profit. So let's run this again, but let's look at a stylist who's lower producing. So let's say that we have a stylist, but instead they're doing $2,000 a month in services, okay? So remember, we were running it before on $10,000 in services, but let's say it's $2,000 in services. So significantly less. When this is happening, you can see the cost of having this team member does go down a little bit because they're only doing 20 color services a month instead of doing the 60 plus that we had the big producing stylist doing, right? So that's the big, huge difference. So when we look at what's possible with this stylist, it's not much at all. So when you look at what it costs to have this stylist in your building, like breathing the air that you breathe, it costs $3,108 just to have them in the space, okay? So that means you can't afford to pay them anything. They are actually producing at a deficit. That chair is not profitable enough for you. You can't have that person. So either that person needs to go down way to part-time, and then you need to double shift or put somebody else in that station on the days that this stylist is not working so that you can make money, or that person needs to be let go. They need to produce more, because what's happening is they're producing at a deficit and it's causing you to lose money, and it's likely also causing that person to feel really, really frustrated with their career because they don't understand why you can't afford to pay them a commission, right? It doesn't make sense. They don't get it. They feel like they're being ripped off month after month instead of understanding that it's just not possible to pay more, right? So I want to talk about what exactly is wrong with the way we talk about traditional commissions and how we got up to this place. So what I think happened is that salon owners really got caught up in the idea that our industry is so weird and so different that we have to create these weird, crazy hybrid structures. And it's just not true, right? So what happened is, instead of looking at the money and the realities of the business, we started looking at what other business coaches say is a good idea. And some of the things that came up as being popular were the idea of paying hourly, which I actually think is great. I think salary works too. Hold on, let me switch over my angle here on YouTube. I think salary and hourly work great too. The problem is we got caught up in top line revenue instead of looking at bottom line revenue. And this is why so many salon owners end up running their salon in the red. Any brave salon owners willing to raise their hand and say, like, I literally run my business in debt? It happens all the time. And sometimes you're not even paying an aggressive commission. Sometimes you're a salon owner and you're paying 40% commissions and you're still in debt and you can't figure out why. It's because you're paying the commissions on the top line revenue. Sometimes there is no profit to pay team members with. It's just not there. So it's actually impossible. So when we say things like, I just want to know what the industry standard is, or when we commission shop, we're like, well, what commission does this salon down the street pay? It doesn't matter. If they're more profitable than you, then they're able to pay differently than you are. This is also where sliding commissions come into play. If a stylist is doing $20,000 in services, what do you pay them? So for somebody who is running you in the red, you don't pay them. You give them 90 days to increase their services, or they have to shift way to part-time so that you can fill their station with another producer, or they have to be let go. Because another thing that we have on the Thriving Leadership Compensation Calculator is an hourly pay breakdown. For somebody who is costing you $1,000, $200,000, $3,000 a month, like running you into that much debt, you can't even afford to pay them hourly. The money's not there. And this is where we get in trouble. So Maggie says, hi, Britt, if you're training an assistant or a baby stylist to build their business with Thrivers, of course, what time frame makes sense to have them underproducing as they learn? So for me, stylists or assistants should not run you in the red. Our assistants were profit machines. So our assistants helped us to run in the black. They helped us to make more money. If all your assistant is doing is shampooing, cleaning up after you, applying hair color, that's a problem. You have a helper, but you don't have a true salon assistant, right? So we have to look at what we need to do to get that person producing profit. So there's a lot of different things that can happen. So we can have them taking their own clients, which we did. So we started, our assistants were able to take clients 1 day a week, then 2 days a week, then 3 days a week, etc. So they were able to start producing some revenue. But even when they were assisting, they were responsible for producing revenue. So you want your assistant to be coming out ahead. There is no point in working with an assistant if they are not helping you to make more money. It's a great community give back, like I love it. But if you are taking a deficit to do so, what is the point? And I know, like, okay, and I get it, because then someone's going to come in and they're going to be like, well, no, I just love to get back to the industry. I love it. Like, that's obviously what I love to do too, give back to the industry. But if I can't feed my family, that I have to find another job, like it's not going to work. And it's the same for you too. I love that you have an assistant. I love that you're training and teaching them. But if you're training and teaching them and you're taking a loss, are you really the person to train and teach them? Because you haven't figured out how to turn a profit on your one employee. I know it's like such a zingy question, but it's true. Like, we really have to look at the profit centers in our business and make sure that everything is coming out ahead. So when you say, like, and I just give you a lot of numbers, and we looked at like what it looks like to have a producing stylist and what it looks like to have a high producing stylist and a low producing stylist. With the high producers, that's when you start being able to pay, 60, even 70% top line commissions. When you have somebody doing $1,500, $2,000, $3,000 in services, my friends, if you're a stylist who's doing $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 in services, I got to tell you, your salon cannot afford to pay you more than a 27% commission. And even if they do, there is a real chance they're running in the red. So while you think you're being ripped off, they're likely not making a dime. Like, they're literally running under the, like, I'd be scared. Honestly, if I was a low producing stylist and I was making 40% commissions, you should be nervous, because I don't know how your salon's affording it. It's kind of scary. We got another question. Heron Blanco says, how can they make money for you if they're assisting? So apprenticeship should be paid, or are you paying them with your knowledge? Apprenticeship should definitely be paid. So when I was an assistant, we can do a whole class on this too. So when I was an assistant, I made $8 an hour, and that was the minimum wage in my area at the time. So lots has changed since then, obviously, but that's what I made, and I worked my booty cheeks off. I would have done anything that was asked of me to assist. That was over a decade ago. Assistants today are not wired like that. Do you know why? Do you know what changed? How many of you were going to say laziness? That's the wrong answer. You know what changed? Education is now in abundance. So when I was assisting, the only way to get educated was to like planes, trains, automobiles, fly myself somewhere, which I was broke, so that wasn't happening. Or I happened to be at a salon where educators were brought in twice a year. So that was great because then I got some free education there. Now, the other thing was stylists mentored me. I had 6 hours or more of education every single week, 6 hours a week. So every month I was getting 24 hours of education and then I was working 40 hours a week. So I lived in the salon, there's no doubt, but I was getting a lot. So when we say now like, well, I pay low, but I'm compensating in education, that model has broken because education is so accessible now. Here I am on an Instagram Live. Every single week I have a free podcast about building your business. Right? It's so, people can take online classes. Educators are flying all over the place. It is so much easier to educate yourself. So salon owners and stylists used to be able to kind of leverage like, hey, come work for me as an assistant. It's not going to pay well, but you're going to learn a lot. It's a mentorship. People can learn a lot on YouTube University now. So that's no longer the leverage. So instead, you're looking to have a team member. We have a podcast coming out about this. This is the reason why a lot of people are like, down with the front desk. The front desk sucks. No, the front desk is great. You just are hiring receptionists, not salespeople, so you suck. Your idea of what a receptionist should be or a front desk should be is what's backwards. It's not that you don't need a front desk. It's that you don't need like a receptionist who is just like barely there and playing on their phone. That we don't need. But we need to have team members who are engaged in our business and are helping us to move forward. Alyssa says, you don't need an assistant anymore to be successful. Isn't that funny? So my daughter is going to be going to cosmetology school, which is very exciting. And we talk all the time about what she's going to do after school. And we definitely talk about assisting programs, but she's going to educate herself first. She's going to privately educate herself first. And some of it will be paid, most definitely. But I'm going to have her scan out there and like find people who she admires and learn from what's in abundance. And then we'll double down in the areas that she wants to. You can educate yourself so differently now. Do I want her to assist? Yeah, because I think it would be of huge benefit. And there's a mentorship component that you can't find anywhere else. But will she need to be paid for her time? Yes. Not because I'm her mother, and I think so. Like, I'm down for my kid to work. Don't get that sideways. But that is the model now. Like, if you're still paying assistants very minimally, or you're like, well, they're getting a great opportunity, you're not going to get a great assistant. You're going to get a very mediocre person who's down to work for that. So just things to keep in mind that, like, what new stylists are looking for has dramatically changed. And so the way you show up to serve and the way you show up to offer has to change as well. I saw a lot of questions coming through. So when you talk about profit for profit, I know any of you who have low producing stylists, I just scared the S out of you, right? Like, that's terrifying. And so any salon owners who feel like they can't get out ahead, but all their booths are filled, or you can't get out ahead, but you have a full team of commissioned stylists, you're either charging too low of booth rent, but don't go back and just jack up your booth rent. You're going to lose all your renters, or you're overpaying in commissions. Your system is broken. So that's where all of your money is going. So a lot of people are asking, like, how do you make assistants profitable? You have to look at them like the way that you look at team members in any business. Every team member should be working towards the goal. The goal is to make money, always. So assistants should be doing things like selling treatments, selling retail, upselling services for you. Why don't they do that? Because of us. Because the stylist gets too nervous. The stylist is afraid that the assistant's going to blow it with their client. And so instead of letting the assistant be their greatest ally, they let the assistant be like the quiet mouse in the corner. Don't say too much to her. Just let me do it. And we get too controlling instead of letting somebody be our asset. And because of that, they don't produce revenue and they end up being a liability for you. So one of the things that I know shocks people sometimes, some of you do things like this. Our assistants were applying color to clients 7 to 10 days after they got hired, and at volume. I needed you as an assistant in my salon within the first 2 weeks for sure of you being hired. You were taking a load of like 3-4 tints an hour, something like that, and then balancing the shampoos of them, right? So my new assistant is doing 30 root touch-ups a day, 2 weeks in. between foils, really aggressively assisting a stylist. There can't be months and months and months of downtime. Nobody wants that. That's not a sellable opportunity. And so the other thing too is people are like, well, I need my assistant to assist for a year. Do you? I mean, it would probably take, and I understand, I assisted for a year. I wouldn't take back that time. Like, I loved it. But today's assistant doesn't want that. Today's assistant wants to be like in and out in 4 to 6 months. And so that's something to think about too. Like, people aren't lazy. They're more motivated. They just want to get on with life. But we categorize them as lazy and say all these other things instead of accepting it for what it is. So we need to have everybody in the building producing revenue. So one of the things that I have on the Thriving Leadership Calculator is the administrative cost category. Now, your assistant would go into administrative cost, but ideally they're generating revenue to cover their own wage. So if they're being paid $15 an hour, they need to be somehow making $15 an hour. Come hell or high water, they've just got to figure it out. And that comes down to you and your training and what you allow for them and all that kind of stuff, right? Okay, let's see if there's any other questions that came in that we can get to. I think that's it for the show this week. Thanks so much for joining. If you have any other questions about Profit of Profit, you can hit me up in the DMs. We'll be back next week to dive deeper into next week's podcast episode. But as I always like to say, so much love. Happy